Welcome back to our Introduction to Unity video series. On today's video, we will be diving into one of the fundamental aspects of game development, creating a score system by using event triggers via collision of game objects. Scores are more than just numbers. They represent progress, accomplishment, and add a layer of challenge and satisfaction to the gameplay experience. Whether you're a beginner exploring the basic of Unity or somewhat an experienced programmer looking to brush up your skills, this tutorial is your guide in implementing a basic score system. Our objectives for this video is to recall the concept of colliders, discuss what a trigger is, add game objects as collectibles in the game, implement a score system, and display a UI element for the score. Let's get started. Just to recall, a collider is a component that provides collision detection through boundaries. As you can see in the Box Collider 2D component, there is a checkbox here called isTrigger. Now, what is a trigger? Triggers are a special setup of the colliders that give them the ability to trigger events when they touch each other or overlap. The two objects won't collide anymore but simply pass through each other if one of the objects has the isTrigger checkbox ticked. Additionally, a trigger event can only be sent if one of the colliders also has a rigid body attached. Trigger events are sent to disable mono behaviors to allow enabling behaviors in response to collisions. Now, where do we use these triggers, you might ask? Well, it will depend on the type of game we're creating. In our 2D platformer game, you can use triggers for collectibles or to add checkpoints and a finish line. For shooting games, you can use the trigger event for when a bullet hits the opponent or the player, making them lose health points, and that will lead to a death. Alright, so to implement a score system by having the player collect coins, let's do the following steps. So first, let's place coins throughout the map and set their tag to coins. So I've got some free assets from the Unity Asset Store, so you can find yours wherever. So we're just gonna drag some coins in our map. So let's try to have a coin on each platform. Let's keep it at 6 for now. So let's change their tag to coin. It's already done. Right. Then let's attach a 2D box collider on the component on these coins. So there's already a 2D box collider, and let's check the isTrigger checkbox. Alright, so next we will be creating an empty game object and name it as Game Manager. We will be attaching a script here. Let's call it Coin Manager. Let's create. This will be used to input how many coins you have collected. So for now, let's create a variable inside there called CoinCount. Coming back to our player movement script, we will add a function there that will help us call if the player has collided with a coin game object. So let's open up our player movement script. Let's create a variable at the beginning that will reference the coin manager script. So public coin manager, sure. Now let's go down. Let's create a function called void on trigger enter 2D. So on trigger enter 2D, this will help us detect if the player has collided with a game object that has a tag of coin. So to do that, inside void on trigger enter 2D function, let's add an if statement. So if collision dot game object dot compare tag coin. Coin manager dot coin count plus plus. So what this does is that if a player collides with a game object that has a tag of coin, the coin count in the coin manager script, this will increment. So let's save. Alright, so once we save, let's go back to the player movement script and drag the game manager object here to the player movement script. And let's just see the coin count here. So when we try to play, when a player collides with the coin count is increasing, as you can see. But we don't want this to happen. We want it to just increment the score once and have the game object disappear. So let's get back to our code. So going back to the on trigger enter function in the player movement script, let's add this line, destroy collision dot game object, so that whenever the player collides or passes through a game object that has the coin tag, the coin will be destroyed and it will only increment our coin count by only once rather. Let's save and let's test that out again. Alright, it's working. Now next up on our agenda here, our next agenda here is to create a UI element that will display our coin count while we're playing the game. Alright, so to start, let's right click and create a UI, text as pro, and let's change the anchor of this text box to so let's hold Alt and let's anchor to the top left of our screen. I'm just gonna move this a little bit and adjust things. We'll erase the text first. We'll code what it will display later. So let's go back to the coin manager script and make a reference to this UI. Alright, so let's type in public. Oh, before that, we should type in using TMPro as part of the namespaces that we will be using. Then let's call a TextMesh Pro UGUI. Let's call it CoinText. So on our update function, we're gonna type cointext.text equals coincount.toString. What this does is that it transforms our integer of coin count to a string so that it will be displayed on our text box later. We can't display in a text box an integer, it has to be a string. So we're gonna convert that to a string. So let's save and let's go back to the game manager script, and we're gonna drag our text, our TMP to the file, and now it's gonna display. Alright. From setting up the coin objects to coding the coin collection mechanism and displaying them on the UI, we've covered everything in our objective for this video. You can still modify the code to however you want. You can multiply each coin to a set amount of points, or display the score differently, like adding an image of the coin. Don't be afraid to experiment with what you've learned here today, and keep pushing the boundaries of your creativity. On our next and final video, we will be finishing up the game by adding a finish line and building our game scenes. Thanks for watching.